Give everybody 1 minute since they seem to all log in right at the same time at 7.
Barry, that's not really your house. Is that a background?
Yeah, it's a background.
Oh, I see. Darn, I was so impressed with your cabinets.
Oh, yeah. Those
Oh
are
my
nice.
God, Barry, I was literally going to ask you where you got those shelves.
No, this is a background.
Almost exactly at those at IKEA for our den. And I was kind of
Ooh.
like, oh, those are nice. I'm going to ask Barry here. My husband's like, ask her where she got those.
And my house in New Orleans had this. They had all the white cabinets, but everything here is a light wood. So,
Oh, okay. Where did you say? I'm sorry. What was the first part?
you know, my previous home
Yeah.
had white cabinets.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, there we go. It's 7:01. Everybody's popping in. Okay. And then we have a Facebook audience also. Luncheon?
Hi, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. All right, so as it hits 7:02, we will start knowing we'll have further people coming in, and we have our Facebook audience out there listening. And there we go. All right, welcome everybody to the February meeting of the Mira Mesa Town Council, still on Zoom for the moment. Hopefully going live very soon with word today that they will be reducing the mask requirements for indoors. We will let you know before the next meeting if we make that change and go back to live instead of virtual. It's a month-by-month thing depending on what's going on. The first thing we want to do is recognize our first responders because they do have a lot to do and we want to let them get back to their important work. I see Officer Christina Santos is here from SDPD Northeastern Division. Christina, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to you.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you.
It was good to see everyone. I got to see a couple of you over at the TEP Festival this weekend. So that was a great turnout. I know that the big topic that keeps coming up is the parking on Rickard, and we are still working on that. I'm reaching out to all my resources. So far, what I'm digging into is that it is an actual business. It's an actual app. It's called getaround.com, where you could rent vehicles instead of going out to, like, you know, your typical vehicle place to go rent a vehicle. They actually have it where people rent out their own personal vehicles there. You could do it for a day. You could do it for a couple of days. I did look into the company. They do have a permit. So I'm still reaching out. I'm going to be reaching out to the city attorney's office to see how they would like to handle this misdemeanor. And then hopefully we could get a better answer on this. So far, you know, I've been reaching out to our patrol officers. We've been making sure that we go out there, and as long as they're moving every single 2 hours. I went out last Monday. I stayed after and worked a little bit of extra hours. So I was out there in the evening hours, and I went through there and I didn't see too many cars. So I don't know if that's more of an issue during the day that everyone is seeing. And I didn't see anyone in the van that was brought to my attention. So still looking for that. And also, I don't know if you guys follow the San Diego Police Facebook page or any social media. So there's a scam that's been going around, and I know that a lot of you probably have heard it before, where people are using, I don't know if it's an app or some sort of device. Well, they're either using our non-emergency number. I know that our RSVP office has had the number used where people are calling and saying that they are part of the San Diego Police Department and they're trying to ask you for money. So just remember, the San Diego Police Department would never ask for you guys to donate money or any type of stuff like that. We would never reach out to you. So again, I don't know if it's some sort of device or something that they're using, but they are using our non-emergency numbers. And I know in our area, the Mira Mesa RSVP's office, their phone number has been used also. So just to be aware of that. If you're going on vacation, our RSVPs wanted me to remind everyone that we are doing the vacation house check. So if you would like to fill those out, you can either drop them off at the office or scan in a copy and email it to me. I will be more than happy to get those to them. Did anybody have any questions for me?
I do have a comment.
Okay.
If if people are calling about a scam for money, what you need to do is say, I have a check for $500. Please come to my house and pick it up. And when they come there, have the police waiting for them.
Right.
I was going to go ahead and clarify for anyone here who's watching either on Facebook or here in the meeting who wasn't aware of the issue with the cars on Rickert Road. There is, as Christina mentioned, an app called Get Around, which allows people to rent their cars, very similar to people Airbnb their homes when they're not there. It was intentional. It was initially intended for people, maybe you have a spare car or you don't drive much and you can do that. But as with Airbnb, where we saw people buying homes strictly for the purpose of turning them into rentals, we are finding that with cars. We got a report through nextdoor.com of a company operating on Rickert Road with cars for rent, and investigating it, we found as many as a dozen cars at a time parked on Rickert along with a white van. And it appears that the person who has these cars is operating out of the van. I'm beginning to think he may be just a manager for the person who owns everything, because there's also an office address right around the corner on Mira Mesa Boulevard. There's a company, it's called 24/7 Auto Rent. They're the owners of the cars. The owner of the business, whose office is on Mira Mesa Boulevard in that little mall. His name's on all the cars on the Get Around app. So the question had been asked, and Officer Santos has been investigating for us. Is it legal for them to park these vehicles on Rickert as an operating business? You know, or is this a legal violation? Because there is something in the municipal code about not parking autos for lease or hire on the street. So it's kind of a gray area. They're checking it out for us. And we got complaints of not only up to a dozen cars at a time parked there and somebody in a van trading keys with people, but that this person was actually doing car maintenance, washing the vehicle, etc., which is definitely against the law.
See, I have one more question. Are there any news on the guy who was setting cars on fire?
You know, I haven't heard any other updates on that. Our mass unit is handling that. So it's still under investigation, but I haven't heard anything else following up on that.
Okay. Any other questions for Officer Santos? Excellent. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I will make sure to stay on. So if anyone comes up with any questions, please send me a message.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone here from San Diego Fire Department? Not surprised. They've been very, very busy
He's
today.
joining right now. I'm just admitting him.
Ah, excellent. So I believe we have Joe Raimondo here from San Diego Fire Department. Welcome.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me yet?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, now I'm on a new computer and I'm trying to figure out how to get my screen on here. Oh, here, okay. There we go.
Welcome.
Good evening. Okay. What'd I miss?
You've only missed Officer Santos's report from SDPD.
Okay. As far as what's going on with San Diego, I guess recently we talked about there was an arsonist in there, and the mass team, I think they found him. But recently we think that we have another one in the area. We've had 6 fires recently along the Montongo corridor that heads between Mira Mesa to Calle Cristobal. So I know our mass team is investigating that. They haven't been very large, but they're suspicious enough that we think that it's somebody else. The transition for Falk and San Diego PD San Diego Fire is moving along. It's still kind of shaky. I know that we would like to have an ambulance in the area more often, but we're not getting them regularly. So a lot of the ambulances are being shut down throughout the city. That's something that the city the fire department is working through, and we don't really have control of it over at the station. As far as COVID numbers, those are all, we don't seem to be having that many COVID calls per se. If people do have COVID, we've been telling them to shelter at home unless they have some very serious symptoms that require us to send them to the hospital. But generally speaking, most people are doing okay that we've seen. And that's pretty much it. Any other questions?
And I know I do have a question with Falk. Are they not prioritizing areas that do not have hospitals in their community area? I mean, Mira Mesa years ago had a plot of land that was set aside for a hospital, but they decided not to build one and turned that land into a mall. And frankly, that's always been my concern, is if anyone in my family has a medical emergency at rush hour, they will die either waiting for an ambulance to get here or in the traffic to get to Kearny Mesa.
So that's the advantage of having a paramedic on every engine in the area. Mira Mesa is fortunate that we have engine 44, truck 44, engine 41, and engine 38, as well as medic 44, medic 244, medic 38, and medic 41. And that's just in the immediate area. The downside is that the ambulances get shuffled throughout the city, and regardless of what we want to do, I know that the current contract looked for them to stay put, but Falk doesn't have enough numbers. Apparently, they just can't keep the staffing up, and so we're short ambulances. Or, which is actually more common, is as soon as we transport a patient, they're stuck at the hospital, and if the hospital has no beds, then they can't leave the patient with the hospital. They're just basically standing with the patient in the hallway. And unfortunately, that just keeps all the ambulance crews sitting there doing nothing, waiting for a bed to open up. And then we end up having to switch around ambulances from South Bay or downtown or wherever they come from. As far as prioritizing, I don't believe that they would prioritize one area over another. It's just that there's just not enough ambulances that we can get. So unfortunately, that's where we're at. Any other questions?
Yes, maybe what's going to fix that? You say you don't have enough ambulances, or
They have enough ambulances itself. What happens is there's either a staffing issue or there is a issue with the hospital. And so the hospital will not allow the paramedics to drop them off at the hospital unless they have a bed for them. And if the hospital doesn't have a bed, they basically sit in the hallway. And we can't keep them in the hallway without a paramedic or a nurse attending to them. It would be different if they went into the waiting room and they sat there by themselves and waited for the triage nurse to get in there. But they called 911 and we went with a paramedic level of care, and then we drop them off and there's no one else to receive that patient. So unfortunately, the paramedics are stuck in the hallway waiting for a bed.
So the solution is better staffing for hospitals?
Better staffing for hospitals. I mean, they're running their own issues with nursing and staff. More paramedics for Falck would be another good thing. Also, potentially bringing ambulances that are throughout the county. They're busy throughout the county, but we might have to suck them in somehow.
Wow.
There's other models they're looking at potentially. I know that our EMS division is they're really trying to come up with a solution. Currently what the county says that any critical call requires 2 paramedics. A paramedic and an EMT on the ambulance, and then a paramedic on the engine. And depending on the severity of the call, we put the 2 paramedics together and we go to the hospital. We're looking at other models potentially where there's 2 EMTs on an ambulance, and if the call is not severe enough, or severe enough that you require a paramedic, but not severe enough that you need 2 paramedics, then they would put the paramedic from the engine on the ambulance with the 2 EMTs. There's more EMTs available. The downside is it puts an engine out of service to take them to the hospital. The good side is at least we have care for the patient, that paramedic level of care. But they're working these issues out through our EMS division.
I think Andrew has his hand up.
Sure.
No?
No?
Nope, not me. Thank you, though.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. The acronym for the team investigating the arson is MAST, what was it?
Metro Arson Strike Team, so MAST, yes.
MAST, okay, Metro Arson Strike Team.
Which is a combination of our investigators, San Diego PD, ATF, and the FBI, all working together as a task force. And so, you know, they take different parts of the case. The fire guys do the actual investigation of the fire, whereas some of the other guys take, they have their own specialties within that task force. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you for being here and giving us those updates. We look forward to you coming back. I think we're going to probably be talking a little more about wildfire preparedness in the very near future.
Yeah, we're starting. I know that all of the nearby stations are all beginning their wildland training. So you'll see us out in the canyon areas. If you're out there or hiking the trails, you'll start seeing us out there practicing a little bit.
Excellent. We'll look for you. I think Danielle, we have the last question.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Can you tell me, I live on the canyon edge, and a very long time ago, we used to get a visit once a year, asking us, a fireman would come to the door, give us some literature, ask us to keep our backyards trimmed, because we have a very large area behind our house before it drops off in the canyon. So we do all that, but do they still do that on a regular basis?
Generally speaking, we do. This last year has been a little different with staff.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we do send crews out to remind everyone to cut it back.
Okay.
I'm
So
not
we
sure.
have a lot of new homeowners in our area since the last time they came around. And also they're not aware of what they need to do behind their back fence.
Which community are you in? We can make sure we send somebody out there.
New Salem West to past Challenger Middle School back in the Canyon area.
Okay, yeah.
Sunny Meadow, Canyon Breeze, Barbados.
Sounds good. Yep. We will go ahead and once we get that literature in, we'll make sure we stop by there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Joe, thank you. We look forward to having you here again next month with a lot more information on the wildfire prep, keeping things cut back.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
You too. Next item on the agenda is President's Report and approval of the January minutes. I'm going to defer the President's Report until after our featured program. I will go ahead and quickly get a vote from members for approval of the minutes, which have been online at the website. If someone wants to make a motion to accept, or do I hear any suggestions for corrections?
Make a motion to accept.
Right, let me get a second.
I'll second.
Second from Jennifer. All right, members, all in favor of approving the minutes? Okay. Thank you. Anyone opposed? And anyone abstaining? Minutes are approved. I will do my president's message after our presentation. So I want to go ahead and introduce Andrew Blue. Andrew is from Project Wildlife. I believe you're the Ramona campus, and is going to give us some very useful information on coexisting with the wildlife we have here. Any of you who have watched nextdoor.com over the last 6 to 12 months, there's a lot of wildlife that's moving into our area as we move into the canyons, particularly here in Mira Mesa, where Carroll Canyon is in the process of being built out. The one that catches the most attention are coyotes, but there are a lot of other animals here. And Andrew is going to teach us how we can coexist, protect the animals who are moving into our area because they've run out of places to go, and keep yourself safe when you're walking your pets outside. Andrew, thank you for being here tonight.
You appreciate the invitation. Thanks. And believe me, I get several requests to talk about coyotes and skunks, so I'm happy to be here. As far as sharing my screen, bear with me a little bit here.
Second, let me, I need to do something.
All right.
Now you should be able to.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. And yeah, just a little bit about myself. I'm the director of the Project Wildlife campus up in Ramona. So we have two Project Wildlife facilities. One is at our Gain Street Humane Society campus in San Diego. And then we have our new one up in Ramona. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of the responsibilities of both campuses and go from there. So just a few examples of some of the species that we deal with. And I'll touch a little bit about the biodiversity of wildlife here in San Diego County, but certainly where you all are at in Mira Mesa, you're kind of right in the middle of all that with the canyons and Penasquitas Canyon and all these different areas around you. I'm sure you're seeing quite a bit of wildlife. And if you have any questions, just we can either put them in the chat and we can chat afterwards, or whatever works best for y'all. So just to give you a little bit of history about Project Wildlife, it started in 1972 by members of the public that were concerned about wildlife. And our whole mission is to care for sick, orphaned, or injured, or displaced wildlife. So both campuses literally are hospital facilities. And we bring in about up to 14,000 animals a year now between both campuses, which is a tremendous amount of animals coming through both of our facilities. There's about 13,000 that come through the Bade Wildlife Center, which is in San Diego, and then about 1,000 up in Ramona. And there's a big difference on the species that go to each of those campuses. Down in San Diego, we focus primarily on smaller mammals and birds. And in Ramona, we focus on large animals, raptors, bears. We actually have 6 bear cubs up there right now. Mountain lions, really a lot of really interesting cases. And most of them are struck by cars or animals that were displaced from fires. We have a little bear cub up there now that's got burnt paws from running through a fire up in Shasta County. So really, really interesting work, very rewarding work. That little guy, we should be releasing back into the wild in Shasta County, hopefully anytime between March and May. So a lot of our releases in those parts of the state, really, we have to rely on the biologists that work in those areas from California Fish and Wildlife. They really help us with everything from the amount of snow melt in those areas that we can release these little guys, and even what sort of vegetation is growing that they can eat. Are there fish in the area, in the ponds and creeks? So I'll get a little bit into that later, but just to give you an idea of the two campuses. So again, the facility in Ramona was acquired by the San Diego Humane Society back in September of 2020. And there you can see Benji, that's one of our resident black bears. He was what we call a non-releasable bear that came to us from up around Big Bear Mountains. He was approaching people in campgrounds and things like that. And unfortunately, when just with any wildlife, once they get acclimated to people and people start feeding them and spending time with them, it's a real big problem for them. So this little guy was getting into trouble. So he was relocated a couple of times and kept coming back to the same area that he was found, going through people's trash cans and things like that. So eventually he came to our facility up in Ramona. That campus is about 13 acres and we have space for many animals, including bears. So, but our main goal is to bring animals in, rehab, and release them. And so Benji, for instance, is non-releasable. So we're actively looking for a home for him. We love having him in Ramona. He's been there almost 3 years now, but he's kind of taken up valuable real estate. So there are other facilities, whether it be a zoo or another facility that can take him. But I guess the bottom line is he's what we would call non-releasable, as he would probably get into trouble again. And then just another interesting case from about a year and a half ago. This little mountain lion cub was spotted by a firefighter up in the Idlewild area, one of the big fires, and really, really in bad shape, very emaciated, dehydrated, weak. I honestly didn't think it was going to survive. It came to us in really, really bad shape. So received daily fluid therapy, medications, and really turned it around. The staff did a fantastic job up there with this little guy. And normally they would stay with their mother up until about 12 or 18 months of age. And this little guy was probably about 5 months when we got him. And in a case like this, it's similar to Benji's, where we really couldn't release him back into the wild because we had such hands-on training or therapy with him. We were hand feeding him, spoon feeding him. He was on IV fluids, sub-Q fluids, everything we could do to kind of save his life really worked against when we wanted to reintroduce him back into the wild. So we actually went to a really nice facility in Scottsdale that still has him, and they introduced him to 2 other lions. And so he's doing great. But that's just to give you an idea of some of the workload that we've had up in Ramona since we merged back in 2020. And as I mentioned earlier, the biodiversity of San Diego is amazing. It's one of the most biodiverse cities in the world, believe it or not. And it's because of the different ecosystems, whether it's ocean, desert, mountains, chaparral, coastal sage scrub. The reasons why we all like living in San Diego County is the same as why there's so much wildlife. A lot of migratory birds that fly through, and overall about 320 different species of birds and mammals alone. So just a couple of examples of Borrego and Cuyamaca. And while we do serve primarily San Diego County, we also are assisting out in Imperial County with the Salton Sea area. We do get animals from those areas, as well as Riverside County. We bring in about 500 animals a year from Riverside. And that's, it's tough. COVID really put a dampener on a lot of the smaller rescues throughout Southern California and primarily Riverside. So we've taken on quite a bit of the caseloads from up there. And it's important to note that most of our animals we try to release back within 10 miles of where they were found. So depending on the species, like these little mountain lions, if it was from Idlewild and it could be released back into the wild, it would be within 10 miles of there. And again, these little bear cubs going all the way back up to Shasta County. It's important to get them back into an area where where there are already plenty of bears being found. There's plenty of water sources, a lot of cover and trees and shade. However, these big fires also create challenges for that. So if they burn thousands of acres and we need to bring an animal back up to release in those areas, it's important to work again with our California Department of Fish and Wildlife biologists, and they kind of keep track and really give us direction on where to release the animals. It's entirely up to them where the animals would go to be returned. And talk about coexisting and why it's so important. Really, it sounds kind of corny, but wildlife really does need our voice now more than ever. And we're seeing so many more animals come in the past couple of years, and we really can't really figure out why that's happening. With COVID, maybe more people are home, maybe they're finding fledgling smaller animals in their yards and in their areas. And of course, someone mentioned earlier, encroaching on their territories, and that's true, and that's bound to happen. But animals are resourceful, and especially coyotes and raccoons and opossums. And I'm sure many folks that are sitting in this meeting have had pretty close interactions with these different species in your yards. And we'll talk a little bit later about how to minimize the attraction of animals coming into your yards. So skunks, we get a lot of skunk patients that come through both of our campuses. Normally the mothers are hit by cars and the little guys are kind of orphaned and on their own. And skunks, raccoons, opossums come to us that way. And often they're initially brought to our Body Wildlife Center to be assessed there. And then we have wonderful volunteers that do satellite work for us. And we really could not, there's no way we could take care of all these little guys without these volunteers. And they literally take them home, they feed them around the clock for us and care for them around the clock. Once they get off a bottle, then they come back to us. And up in Ramona, we have different areas that we can house these little guys in. And we like them to be drinking milk from a bowl at that point. And again, as much hands off as we can. We really want to set them up for success to be reintroduced back into the wild. We'll hold them for a bit and then put them into pre-release enclosures. And again, we're about 13 acres up there. So they kind of get a lot of room to roam. However, they're still in our care, and we'll spread everything from their food and their diet and water, everything to really make them kind of forage and hunt for food. We don't really want them eating out of a dog bowl or a pan or anything like that to get them used to people. We want them to start kind of hunting on their own. And skunks are, like them or not, they're really important part of the ecosystem. So about 70% of their diet consists of insects that can be considered dangerous to humans, including black widows and scorpions. Yeah, so keep them around. And they also eat rodents, so gophers, things like that in your yard. Of course, lizards, frogs, bird eggs, but beetles, larvae, earthworms. So they eat a lot of the kind of important part of the ecosystem as well. But I think it's important to note as far as the black widows and scorpions. And they rarely attack. And it's funny, we get a lot of babies up at the nursery, and it's very, very rare that we have to where they spray anybody. They don't really want to have much to do with us. We give them a lot of trees and shade and cover and hides for them to get up into. We just want them to be big enough to release them. But they'll usually let you know when they're going to spray. And I don't know if anybody here has ever been squirted by a skunk, but it's pretty bad. If you get it, it's bad enough when you see a dead one on the road and you smell it in your car. But when your dog's been sprayed or I've been sprayed trying to release them out of traps, it's not much fun. So usually they'll fluff up their fur, they'll stomp their feet, wave their tails. They like to stand on their hind legs and spit and make all kinds of racket, anything they can to kind of scare you off before they spray. So they don't really want to get you that close to them either. And you may or may not have seen them. I see them. I live up in Valley Center, so I get all these animals coming through my yard. But it's not uncommon to have them make friends with your domestic cats and eating alongside of them. Same with opossums. We see them pretty often in my neighborhood, eating dog and cat food. If you do get squirted by one, or your dog gets it, if you look it up online, there are ways to try to minimize the smell and the effect of it. And a quart with 3% hydrogen peroxide and baking soda. Again, all this you can find online, but Dish soap helps. The clothes are, unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. So I don't recommend trying to wash them or put them in your dryer or anything. It's best to just throw them away. And apple cider vinegar is also a good friend. It's a good thing to kind of squirt around your yard a little bit, and that works for other species as well. You can try that to keep animals out of your yard if you don't want skunks or opossums. That is known to work as well. So as far as coyotes, that seems to be the main topic of conversation quite often these days. So they are members of the dog family. They're susceptible to very similar issues that dogs have. So fleas, ticks, mange. Obviously we can't vaccinate them, but they're susceptible to distemper, to parvo, all these different things. Luckily, they're really, really hardy animals, so they rarely get that. If they do get mange, which occasionally you'll see that. I see them on these Nextdoor apps or different people will see a really skinny, hairless coyote. And unfortunately, that's often a result of secondary rodenticide poisoning. So just so everyone knows, you may put some bait out to try to minimize squirrels in your property or gophers, but often those animals, once they die, they're eaten by coyotes, they're eaten by owls and hawks, and many of our patients that come through both of our campuses are animals that are suffering due to the effects of rodenticide. So you might keep that in mind if you're trying to come up with ways to poison animals. It's really not a good, fair way to do it. There's many, many other ways to minimize animals like that in your yard. And we have many of our resources are on our Project Wildlife website. So if you get a chance, you might want to look through that. But one thing we really advocate for, especially up where I live in Valley Center and work in Ramona, is owl boxes. You can set those up on your property, and even kestrel boxes, which are small sparrowhawks. They're great at getting mice and rats and squirrels, and much easier way on the environment to let them hunt them naturally. So getting back to coyotes, they can live as solitary individuals or pairs or small family groups. Often when you hear the vocalizations, it's true, they do kind of call between each other and vocalize between each other. It's not really proven that they're calling in reinforcements or any of the kind of myths that you hear about them. They're just communicating between each other. And they generally reproduce once a year. So, I often get calls about coyotes following people walking their dogs, or they see them at different times of the day. And there's different reasons for that. If there is a breeding season, which is really now, it's between December to March. So often if you're walking your dog and a coyote's ideally not close to you, but if it's following you, they're often just kind of checking you out. And also they're looking at your dogs. They sometimes can perceive them as a threat. If it is the breeding season and it's a male, it's very rare that he's going to come up and attack, but he's just watching and making sure that nobody's getting close to his females. And then, we also hear a lot more about seeing coyotes out throughout the day. And in the past, it's always been seen that they're out at night or at dusk. But, there's different reasons for that. And the pupping season, which is March, April, they're going to be hunting 24 hours to feed their pups. So you might keep that in mind. If you see an animal out during the day, it's often an animal that's going to be hunting whatever it is it's trying to find, whether it's gophers, squirrels, to feed their pups. And why are they here? Their range really has extended, and there's a couple of reasons for that. If you look at the map from where they used to be found to where they're found now, one unusual part of this is many, many years ago, there were wolves throughout most of California, and of the US, and wolves were the main predator for coyotes. So over the years, as wolves have been exterminated throughout these areas, the coyotes have really been able to thrive. And they're also really, really resourceful animals. They can live off of anything. As we know, they eat berries, they eat mice, rats, trash, gophers, bird seed, anything they can come across, they're going to eat. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, about what you can do to try to minimize them being on your property. But again, they really are taken off, and which is good in my mind. People have different different ideas on coyotes, and some people like them, some people don't, but they really are a beneficial part of the ecosystem. And that's really what we try to remember. So again, they generally hunt day and night. They communicate by vocalizing, scent marking through a variety of body displays. It's common to mistake a few coyotes communicating with each other for a large group. They make a lot of racket. I'm sure you hear them in Mira Mesa, you hear them in the canyons. One animal can make a lot of noise. I'm not going to click on this link, but if you do look around, and if you have an interest, there's a lot of really good resources online about coyotes and coexisting with them, and just urban legends and things like that. They're really fascinating animals, I think, and they're one of my favorites. They're fast and agile and really highly intelligent and social. And again, very, very adaptable. They can thrive, whether it's in the mountains, the desert, the coast, anywhere in San Diego County, they're able to survive. As far as encounters with them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be really, really wary of people. Bold behavior is unusual, and of course, it's often a result of habituation. Often people tell me that they come into their yards, and we make recommendations on how to minimize making your yard inviting to them. And often it's leaving dog and cat food out overnight. It's having a pond or a water feature, whether it's a fountain in your yard, and in the middle of summer when it's hot, they're going to hop a fence to get in there to get whatever it is they need, whether it's water or food. So even compost piles and fruit trees, dead fruit that falls on the ground. I gave the same talk up in Fallbrook on Thursday, and as you can imagine, with all the avocados up there, everyone is saying we have so many coyotes on our property, but there's really no way to minimize that. These large acreages with avocados all over the ground, that's a perfect environment for them. And there's plenty of rats in those trees eating the avocados. So in some cases, you just really need to learn to kind of coexist with them. The abundance of resources can lead to conflicts, and their documented cases of coyotes injuring people is pretty rare. You do see it occasionally in the media. It's very, very rare. And again, it's most often related to people feeding them intentionally or unintentionally. And just where the animals aren't afraid of you, that's when it becomes a problem. And that can be whether it's a coyote, bear, raccoon, whatever the species may be. You really don't want to feed them. And it's also illegal. And touching on that, relocating animals is not allowed in the state of California. So you're not allowed to trap a coyote on your property and drop it off down the road in your neighbor's yard. It's all animals are owned by the state of California. And just also to make it clear, because I often get calls about people saying that there's a coyote following them or in an area that doesn't look right. You really want to reach out to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're not allowed to get a hold of them. Literally, if they come to us injured or sick, or they've been struck by a car or something like that, we have the license to treat them. But my first suggestion is, if you have an animal that could be considered a nuisance, whether it's following you, or once in a while I'll see video of them in a dog park or something, then you want to reach out to California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And their website is actually really thorough, and it's a great way to reach out to them. They can identify where the animal's at, and if there's a problem, they would be the ones to relocate it. So again, despite decades of poisoning, trapping, or shooting them, there's more coyotes now in North America than ever. So I'll show a little graph later, but when you remove an animal from its home post, it's really inviting others to move in. And you see that quite often with feral cats as well. If there's a neighborhood cat around and something happens to it, often more cats will move in there. That's just kind of the way, whether it's wildlife or feral animals operate. And so lethal control, such as poisoning or shooting them, really disrupts the whole hierarchy. It doesn't really eliminate the coyotes from your property. And this is a little hard to see, but it's why killing really doesn't work with them. If you shoot or poison them, I'll just talk briefly about this, but there is a dominant male and a dominant female in these packs. And if something were to happen to one or the other animals are going to come in and challenge the remaining pack leader for the pack. And you'll have more breeding, you'll have lots more activity. There's going to be more animals around. It's just not, again, I'm not really going to get into this part of it too heavily, but it's just showing why it doesn't help to eliminate one or two of the top animals, because it's just going to create more havoc and more competition, and other animals are going to be drawn in due to the vocalizations or whatever the case may be. So as far as coexisting with them, again, you really don't want to approach them. I know they're cute. If you see raccoons in your yard, you see the person feeding those raccoons, that's really a bad idea. They're cute animals, they're neat, they're fun to watch, but if they're not afraid of you, they can bite you and really, really hurt you. And that's, again, with all wildlife. So most of the time they're going to run and leave. You really don't want to be feeding them. You want to be kind of aware of the breeding season, especially with coyotes, again, which is now. And really with most wildlife and many of our calls to Project Wildlife, you can just allow the mothers and the babies time to raise their young. We get many, many calls to Project Wildlife about a young fledgling bird that someone sees in their yard. And most of the time the mother is in the area and is keeping an eye on it. And we always say, while we don't want to discourage anyone from bringing it in, if it looks injured or a dog or a cat has gotten a hold of it, most of the time, if you just watch them, just give them time to be on their own, the mothers will pick them up. And that's our best suggestion, is to watch them. And we also get quite a few baby bunnies and rabbits and squirrels the same way, where someone finds a nest and brings them in. And, rabbits, for instance, the mothers will only come about twice a day and nurse the babies. The rest of the time they're away because they don't want to attract predators to the nest. So if you come across the nest of babies in your yard, just leave them alone. For the most part, the mother's going to come back and take care of them. If you're releasing animals, like where I live in Valley Center, we have about an acre and we have a small pond. So we get quite a bit of wildlife coming through. And prior to letting my dogs out in the morning, I usually try to make some noise and just make sure that if there's any animals in the area, they know to kind of clear out before we release my pets. And if a coyote does frequent your yard, just make loud noises, honestly, with air horns and pots and pans, and you can haze the animal with a water hose. Most of the time they're going to take off. In my experience, they almost always do. But if they don't, you can just bang or stomp your feet or something, and they're going to take off. I'm sure anyone who's seen them on their property or nearby, if you make kind of a racket, they're more often than not, they're going to take off. As far as safe deterrents for wildlife, coyotes are able to easily get over a 6-foot fence. So you need to at least have a 6-foot fence, and also what we call predator wire, which is that you don't want them digging under the fence. So you can lay just like a small 3-foot section of chain link or chicken wire on the ground and attach it to the fence going outside of your property. If you live up against a bank or a canyon, that's a good way to deter animals from digging under. And also, of course, squirrels and rabbits and things start those holes to go under the fence, and then a rabbit or a coyote, will kind of enlarge the holes to come through. So any holes like that, you want to keep to a minimum, and seal and secure your trash cans and compost piles. All those things are what attracts animals. So you want to make sure you've got them covered and sealed up, and seal up any openings to structures. That's where you'll find raccoons giving birth in holes in your garage, or skunks will do it. But any openings to structures, you really want to make sure you've got wire, chicken wire, things like that to minimize ways that animals can get into up under the eaves and things like that. And again, vinegar, you can sprinkle around plants and trash cans. Sometimes that works. Again, compost, you want to have it in secure containers. And even, bird feeders, like I said, those coyotes are resourceful. And if there's bird seed on the ground, they'll even come in for that if there's not much to eat. So just keep all that in mind. Don't leave your dog and cat food out overnight. That's a surefire way to attract animals. So real good way to keep them away is just take your dog food inside, or covered at night, and cat food, and eliminate accessible water sources as best as you can. And that's hard if you've got a fountain, or like me, I have a small pond. You just kind of realize you're attracting them. And I guess, in a nutshell, you want your yard to be less appealing than unfortunately, than your neighbor's yard. You want to make sure you're doing everything that you can to not attract them to your property. But that being said, it's also really important for all of your neighbors to be on the same page. If everybody does it, they're gonna move on and go somewhere else. If the whole neighborhood is not leaving out things that are attracting them, the coyotes will go elsewhere. And then motion activated lights, radio sprinklers, things like that have been known to work as well. And we often hear about cats or small dogs being potential prey, and larger dogs as competition. So, don't let your domestic animals roam, and certainly small dogs and cats, there is a concern for them. So you really want to make sure that you're not letting them out in the yard. If you live up in an area against the canyon or something like that, just keep an eye on them. You really want to be outside with them. I do, if I have a small pug mix, and we don't let him out unless we know we've got one of the other two big dogs out there with him, or one of us. We just really want to minimize any opportunities like that. And that shows just an example of a fence with what we call an in-rigger on the outside, and then the predator wire. Also, the predator wire would be that piece that's laying on the ground that attaches to a 6-foot fence, and then the in-rigger is, of course, the piece that's going in. So all that fence that you see in the upper right would be facing outside to keep animals from coming in. If you ever go to the zoo or the safari park, that's what you'll see to keep their animals in there. Some of these photos down below, I'm not sure about that little schnauzer with the spikes on him. I don't know if I would bet on that. I think that's being marketed now as a way to keep coyotes from getting small dogs. I can't say whether I've seen that effectively used or not, but another option is the center photo, which is a catio, which is of course an outside patio for cats that's wired in. If you don't want your cats going outside, or small dogs, you can have something like that. And then lastly is what's known as a coyote roller, and that's a pipe that goes on the top of the fence. And those are known to work, and we actually use them in some of our shelters to keep dogs such as huskies that are real good at hopping fences. We'll put these coyote rollers on the fence to make it so the dogs can't get up and over it, and they do seem to work. They're not cheap. You can see coyoteroller.com, look it up and check out the website. But if you live on a canyon, that's something that I would seriously consider. I have a big open area behind my house. We haven't done it, but we're looking into it as well. And there are other ways to do it also, with a little bit more affordable, maybe with PVC pipe. If you go online, you can research it and come up with ways to try to minimize them getting over your fence. And that's it. And again, it's important for everyone in the neighborhood to follow the same kind of guidelines. And there you go. So any questions or comments or concerns that I can help with?
Yeah, I have a question. What is your address in Ramona?
It's I knew someone was gonna ask me. It's Highland Valley Road. You'd have to look it up. It's Project Wildlife in Ramona. I don't have it in front of me, but
It's on Highland Valley Road.
Yep, you got it.
I know where it's at. Yeah, thanks.
It's the old Fund for Animals. It's been up there for many, many years, and it now has our big Project Wildlife sign in front of it. I think it's 24870 Highland Valley Road.
I do have a question. We talk about the coyotes becoming more comfortable in an urban or suburban setting. And I've been asked a few times by people, isn't there something we can do to attract them back to the remaining wild areas like the canyons? People will talk about, shouldn't we just throw food down there? I know that's a terrible idea, but I'm gonna let you tell us why exactly that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly sympathize with it. It's while it isn't a good idea, I understand, certainly the theory behind it, but it's twofold. The animals are going to become dependent on people feeding them. They're resourceful, so they're going to figure it out. They know these canyons, they know where the water sources are there, they know where the prey, squirrels, things like that are. So you know, as long as there's, let's say there after a fire, as long as we have new growth and cover and ponds and wildlife existing in those areas, that's going to attract them better really than anything that we can do. It's a great point. I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's just in my mind, it's much easier to probably discourage them from coming into your property. And again, I know that, I mean, people are always looking out for animals, and I've seen them after the fires. You know, I've had people set up water containers out in the backcountry here for deer, mule deer, and things like that. And everyone really, I think, has the animal's best interest at heart and are doing the best thing for them. It's just often it can backfire again. It gets animals acclimated to people, which is really what we don't want. I think you give them more credit than I give them a lot of credit to be able to seek out these things on their own.
Thank you. Any more
I had
questions?
Yeah, I had a question about, so if you're taking your dog down into the canyon, I have a retriever mix, and we saw some coyotes, and like you said, they were just checking us out, but it just kind of freaked me out because they didn't seem scared, worried at all. Do you think it's safe to take and was a fairly good sized dog. Is it safe to still take your dogs down in the canyons?
In my opinion, certainly. I take my dogs out a lot, mountain biking up here and hiking and Daily Ranch and all these areas. And I've never had a problem. I can't 100% say that you could never have a problem, but I think it's very, very rare with all of the county parks and state parks in San Diego County. It's pretty unusual to hear of an incident like that. It does. I mean, I've seen these ones where there were baseball fields and things like that where there's been problems. But I guess to answer your question, I do it, and I'm not worried about it. I always have them on a leash. I think that's the key. Is if you were to let them off leash and then they get into it, that's a whole different story. It could be a male or female protecting the rest of the pack or pups. But as long as you're moving and walking, they're gonna steer clear of you as well, and your dog. But again, just ideally, if you have them on a leash, that's your best bet.
So I have one. So last summer we were having our kitchen remodeled, and so we were spending more time outside in the early evening, cooking out there. And we did see more wildlife than we're used to. And we're not very close to any canyons, but even with that, skunks came wandering through. And one day, a family of 5 raccoons showed up in the back. Fortunately, none of them tried to join us for dinner. But is there anything one should do in that case? And we just kind of waved at them and said hi, and they eventually went away. But
that's probably your best bet, honestly. They're important to have in the area, I believe. Again, all the things I mentioned earlier, whether it's the skunks eating scorpions or whatever, and black widows. Yeah, I think it's really neat to see them, walking by in the area. But yeah, just leave them alone, especially raccoons. They can get into trouble if they see a trash can lid off or something. And I release a lot of raccoons in San Diego County, and they're often babies that the mother was hit by a car, and they come to us at a really young age. And we take them way up to Santa Isabel and Pine Hills and Lake Henshaw. We take them as far away as we can get them. However, we know there's many, many urban animals that thrive just as well, certainly in San Diego, like raccoons. If you're not up against a canyon, you're still going to have animals like that. And certainly, rattlesnakes as well. We get a lot of calls for rattlers in people's properties and things like that to help relocate them.
Rob, I see your hand up.
Yeah, Andrew, I was just curious that your centers, are they open to the public? I believe I thought they were not. So how do people like us, do we call your center, and then we get routed through San Diego Humane, and then, or are residents allowed to drop an animal off at at your center, at any one of your centers?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have the two campuses. So the one in San Diego, the Body Wildlife Center, gets the majority of wildlife, and most people, it's closer, so most people will bring animals there. Neither one is officially open to the public. You can walk up to the front door at the campus in San Diego and meet our admissions folks, and they'll take the animal in from there. The campus in Ramona is entirely fenced. There's a gate. You would push a button, ideally if you call first, but and if you call, you'll get our switchboard downtown, and they'll put you in touch with the Project Wildlife folks, and they'll give you the direction of which campus to go to. But it's important to note that all of our campuses, so we have 5 San Diego campuses, San Diego Humane Society campuses, can accept wildlife. While we prefer to have the animals brought to either the center in San Diego or the facility in Ramona, if you live in Escondido and you can't get down there, or you live in Oceanside, or you live in El Cajon, we can certainly accommodate that. We have small triage areas at each campus to take wildlife, and then we will shuttle them down ourselves, or volunteers help bring them down to whatever campus they need to go to. I think, did that answer your question?
Danielle?
Yes, I have a question about deceased animals.
Mhm.
I know you work in the county, but we're in the city here. And I think our only recourse is if an animal's in the road, to call the environmental services. If an animal is on your property, say a raccoon has died on your property, you have to do private, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't help with that. Our humane law enforcement would respond if you have an injured raccoon. If it was alive, we would certainly respond to it. Our humane law enforcement would respond to any cases like that. And again, even rattlesnakes. If you have a rattler on your property and you need it relocated, we help with that. But yeah, as far as animals that are deceased, we would not be involved in that.
Okay, we have a snake wrangler in Mira Mesa.
Oh, good.
You probably know him because he works alongside Humane as well.
Okay, sure. What's his name? Do you remember?
Barry?
Barry. Huh.
I don't want, no, I don't want.
Oh, Tom.
Tom
Yeah.
Durr.
I knew it was Tom, but I wasn't sure of his last name.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
DRR.
Absolutely.
Good guy.
Right.
I just wanted to jump back to the question about skunks eating black widows. I had not heard about that. How do they do it? Do they just gobble them down so fast there's not a chance to get stung, or?
Yeah, they do. You know, animals that prey on potentially dangerous animals are really, really good at it. You know, you'll see rattlesnakes killed by hawks and bobcats, and they're just so good at it. I can't say I've ever seen a skunk eat a black widow, but I can imagine they probably stomp them a little bit, you know, and get them to go at it and then prey on them. But yeah, they are. That's pretty. It's interesting. The same with scorpions and centipedes.
Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to make that our last question. Andrew, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's a very hot topic now, especially out on Nextdoor and Facebook.
Yeah.
And we're going to have this presentation out there so that people who could not attend the meeting can watch.
Great. Well, I'm more than happy to be here, and I hope we figured out ways to help you. So don't hesitate to call Project Wildlife anytime. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
All right, back to the president's report. I'm just going to refer everyone to our newsletter. That's part of our good news, is that after a year, we do have our newsletter coming back out. The first edition was posted online, and the president's message is like, I don't want to say a little darker than usual, but we're having some tough times here. People are very frustrated by the things that are going on. And we've always said that a community is only going to be as good as the people who get involved. So I guess this is my personal call to action. The town council will be putting together a lot of things. We've started, and it was kind of a very halting thing with the Neighborhood Watch Project. We are going to push that again, especially in light of the vehicle arsons. But if we can't invest a little time in the place where we live to make it better, we have no business expecting the city, county, state officials to care about what's going on here, because as I quoted the numbers in the newsletter, Mira Mesa is a very large community. We're probably the largest in San Diego, but our population is still dwarfed by the size of the city, the size of the county. And even though we're very large, we're about half of D6. There's just as many people in the rest of District 6 vying for attention. So you're not going to get elected officials coming down and spending a week in Mira Mesa, walking all our streets, talking to every one of our 80,000 residents to find out what the problems are. We have to organize ourselves and we have to speak up, and we have to do more than just, 2 or 3 people see something and they email the council office. We've got to put in place our own organization. We have to take whatever is most important to us. If it's the potholes, if it's the homelessness, if it's crime, and devote an hour a week. And if you get enough people devoting that 1 hour a week, we're going to make a huge impact. And for those who have told me that, it's one of my favorites, nothing gets done here because we're only Mira Mesa. We're not La Jolla. We're not Rancho Bernardo. We don't matter. That's not true. And we're going to prove that. So you will start seeing us with our calls to action. We're coming out of COVID. We heard today that the indoor mask mandate will expire on the 15th. We're probably going to be moving back out, I will not say to normal, but out where we can be a community in person. And if we don't step up on it now, we're going to miss an opportunity to come back out of this better than we ever were as a community. So that's my little piece of my mind for the month. All right, we're going to move on to government and community resources. Mira Mesa Branch Library. Is Ina Gibson with us? Okay, Pam, I think you have her report.
Right, I can give a report on Ina's behalf. The library on Mondays now is open until 8 p.m. So my hunch is that, she's got busy with closing things. However, there are a lot of good things going on at the library. The library provided materials to the Mira Mesa Town Council booth at the TET Festival, and it was a win-win because we were able to display things for the library, and we gave out some of the Museum Month passes that are good for 50% off in the month of February for a party of 4. They've got those at the library. You can go in and get them. There's also a bookmark they have that with your library card, there are a number of ongoing discounts at various museums that you can take advantage of. And again, they've got that at the library. Some of the special events, either in the library or outdoors near the library, that we had flyers about at the Town Council booth. The star attraction is something that's coming up on Wednesday, February 16th. There will be an opportunity in Mira Mesa Community Park to meet a miniature therapy horse. There is a therapy horse that it's in connection with this year's One Book, One San Diego book for children. Is a book about children's with disabilities, and therapy horses and therapy dogs are useful. And this horse named Hershey Kiss, I believe, will be in Mira Mesa Community Park. It's sponsored by the library. You can check on the time. I think it's a morning activity. Danielle, help me. Do you remember exactly when? We had a lot of people interested. Call the library to find out more. The other thing I'll encourage you to do is to take advantage of one of the 2 book groups that are now active at the library. There's a book group called Bibliomaniacs that meets earlier in the month. They have a meeting tomorrow evening, and I don't know what book they're discussing because I'm not personally involved, but the one that I am involved with is called the banned book club because a lot of the books that we read are on the American Library Association's list of books that have been banned or challenged. So that is a lot of fun to read books that some people have considered dangerous at some time over the years. We also read just other interesting books. This one for February is a newer book. It was published in 2019. The title is A Song for a New Day by Sarah Pinster. And at the time it was written, it was science fiction about a pandemic that has performances, live performances are banned, and musicians and other performing artists are having a hard time being able to get along, and talk about a very prescient near future science fiction novel. I'm looking forward to reading this. Our meeting is via Zoom on the last Tuesday in February, so that would be Tuesday, February 22nd. And there are copies of this in the library system. You can, at the moment, there is one on hold at the Mira Mesa Library at the circulation desk, so you could get it again by checking it out there, or they're in the county library system that you can get sent over to Mira Mesa via the circuit program too. So lots of good stuff going on at the library. Last but not least, there's a promotion for kids getting their first library card, and there is a mascot for libraries, Odie the Coyote, who has a day when he goes to the library and checks out a whole stack of books. And while supplies last, the library has had some little plush Odie dolls and also a book free to the 5-year-old and under set getting their very first library card of their own. So check out the library.
All right. Thank you so much, Pam. Next up from Miramar College, President Wes Lundberg.
Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My apologies for missing the last meeting or two. I think lots of things going on. I'll try to be brief, but I wanted to give you a pretty good overview of what's happening at the college. Enrollment is down. That's been the trend, of course, throughout the pandemic. And if you follow higher education at all, you'll know that that's the trend all across the nation. Community colleges are particularly hit because the populations that we serve tend to be the ones that are the most vulnerable to the COVID virus. So we're down about 11% at the moment. We have been trending upward. Our spring semester just started on Monday, but we have bumped a lot of our classes to an 8-week format to allow for a delayed start. So if you know someone who was kind of waffling about whether or not to jump back in for spring, do let them know that there's a lot more 8-week classes available that will allow them that time. We got hit like everybody with the Omicron about mid-December. We started realizing that this was something that was going to hit us again. And right at the time, you'll recall at a previous Mira Mesa Town Council meeting, I reported that we were going to be back fully in person on January 3rd. We were forced to bump that down, and then we had to extend it. So we are in remote operations currently until February 22nd, and then we'll return to a phased in return like we had throughout the fall, which means 3 days a week for employees who are non-essential to be on campus. And then we'll be fully back on campus, God willing, March 8th. So that's the plan with the COVID activities that we have going, but we're looking forward to getting back to something that'll look like normal. We're anticipating that we will always have a higher demand for online classes than we had prior to the pandemic. That's a natural transition. People realize that they can learn, that it is rigorous, and that they can do very well in those classes. For some people, of course, that's not a good format, but you know, it won't look exactly like it was. What we're finding though is that students, even when they're choosing to go online, they don't want to do it for all of their classes. They just want to do it for some of them, for the most part, and they do want all of the resources available on campus so that they can come to campus as usual. So if you see trending toward online in the news or something like that, keep in mind that that's just some of the courses for the most part, and that everything else is expected to be as it was before. So we're trying to figure out what that balance is. Frankly, it's not easy. There's no science, there's no studies that have, looked at what they would want. We've been doing our best to poll and survey students, but sometimes the data that we get back is not very clear on exactly what to do. So we're feeling our way along. So bear with us. we will be back fully at some point and able to help folks achieve their dreams and their future plans. We have been in the midst of a facilities plan update, and part of that we're coming to some conclusions now. But what I wanted to share with you all is consistent with what I've been sharing with you in the past. Miramar College is going to be increasing its availability and accessibility to the community around us, which means specifically Mira Mesa and Scripps Ranch. So part of our plan is the Performing Arts Center that got bumped from the previous Prop N and Prop S projects that revolutionized the campus. And sometime, I think, when we're all back, perhaps it'd be fun to have this group meet on the campus, and we could walk you around or something like that. If you wanted to do that, just let me know. I'm more than happy to arrange that when it's safe for all of us and we feel comfortable doing so. But the facilities plan, I know Joe is a part of that, and thank you, Joe, for your service with that. It's going to be quite a facility. In the past too, I think the last time I was here, someone asked me about community garden. We had some interest with some of the departments, academic departments in that. So we've kind of expanded that to include community as well. Just a couple of examples of how we're expanding our accessibility to you all and the people that we serve. We have 13 new faculty positions that are under a search now or will be soon. All of that is coming through new funding from the state that was provided specifically for that. That is something that's been long standing, but the San Diego Community College District recognized that Miramar has been long behind. We underwent a hiring freeze, and right after we grew substantially over 10,000 students, the full-time equivalency, where our number head count is between 12 and 14,000 pre-pandemic. These positions will help position us to expand some of those programs that we've been wanting to do, such as music, computer science, and things like that. So that's good news, and hopefully will mark a trend in the district to try to help Miramar catch up. I mentioned that we got 13 of those positions. That's half of the positions that were provided by the state, meaning that the other colleges are making do with 4 new positions in order to help try to get Miramar up to speed. Lastly, the budget is we remain operating under what's called hold harmless, which keeps our funding at the level that it was in 17-18. With the decline in enrollment, when we come out of hold harmless in 2024, we're going to be hurting. So because we've lost students and we'll suddenly lose our funding. So hopefully the state will come up with a way of graduating that, the impact of that on colleges, because obviously we're not the only one who will be suffering when we come out of hold harmless. That will be something that would reverberate through the state. So hopefully they'll come up with something that's going to be a little bit easier to work out of. However, that said, we at Miramar are working toward retention of students and addressing some of the criteria that the governor has put out there for us to focus on in the future under the student-centered funding formula. So if you've seen that out there, that has not gone into effect because of hold harmless, but it will be in effect as soon as we come out of it. So it rewards us for serving underprivileged students in ways that we haven't been rewarded in the past. So that's it. Just to conclude the point on budget, we're doing okay. We're figuring stuff out. We're finding efficiencies, and we're staying in the black, but it's getting increasingly challenging to do that. So, but we remain focused on students, the community that we serve, and assisting with economic development. And that's my report. I'm happy to take any questions or hear any comments. And if none, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and the ability to be here. Usually I like to stay to the end of the meeting, but tonight I'll have to excuse myself. I need to step away now, but thank you very much. And if you want to get in touch with me, Barry certainly knows how to find me, and don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for all you're doing to involve the community in Miramar.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, next up, Mira Mesa Community Planning Group, Jeff Stevens.
All right, I have a few things to report. First of all, we do have a vacancy for a business member. We're looking for someone who is an owner or representative of a business. It has to be a business in a commercial area. It can't be a home-based business. But if you know anyone or want to recommend anyone who would fill that position, please let me know. At the last meeting, we had a presentation from Local Clean Energy on energy issues, including the proposed large increases in costs to homes with solar power. And then we had a fairly extended discussion of the proposed community plan update. The city actually received a grant for $650,000 from the state to do the plan update, in which it promised to add 10,000 to 20,000 housing units to the community plan before we even started. Currently, the city wants to add 24,000 units to the commercial and industrial areas along Mira Mesa Boulevard, which would increase the Mira Mesa population to 164,000, more than double the current population. So far, we've had no proposals for additional schools, parks, or other public facilities. We're still waiting on reports for projected impacts on traffic, parks, and schools. It was suggested that we might add second stories to the current schools in order to handle the additional population. There is a working draft of the proposed plan update that's expected in February or March, and the traffic study is promised for February. Next meeting, there'll be a plan update meeting prior to the community planning group meeting. This will be on Thursday, the 20th of February for both meetings. That one will have proposed changes to cannabis regulations that will simplify them, and the signage program for 3 routes. The big thing right now is the community plan update, which is moving along and is concerning in a lot of ways. So that's my report, unless there are any questions.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question. Is it possible to get 3 routes to come back to a planning group meeting to explain where they are in the process? Because they're supposed to start our park down there when they get a certain amount of houses done. And I can't find that information anymore. So if we can get them and bring us an update on where they're at right now and when they're going to start the park.
Yeah, I'll ask them. That's phase 2. I don't think it'll be until 2024, but I'll see if I can find out.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And Joe, stay right there because you're up now for Mira Mesa Community Recreation Group.
All right, the good news is Wagenheim project has finally started. At least they have the fences up. It took them a week to figure out how to do that. But the bad news is 2 years ago when this project was supposed to be built, it was 5.3 million. Now, since it's starting 2 years later, it's over $9 million. That does a lot of things. It takes money away from everything else. SOC still is not scheduled yet. They're still working on updating stuff for phase 2, which is a swimming pool and a skateboard park. The other thing is we're thinking about getting cameras for Green Park and for the ball fields across from New Salem. And just everybody, watch out for vandalism. And if you see anything wrong, please take pictures. Everybody has a phone and call the police. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Let's see who else we have. Mira Mesa High School, Jennifer.
Sorry about that. Hi, good evening. Couple of announcements. Talking about coming back in person, we are going to have Taste of Mira Mesa live this year. I mean, in person. So yeah, very excited. So I'm hoping, like you said, bringing the community back together, getting out there. So hopefully we can really PR this thing. The date is April 23rd. So save the date on your calendars, Saturday, April 23rd. And it will be at the Vault off of Miramar Road. Which is a beautiful facility. We had it there once and that worked out. Most of it is out, a lot of it is outside. There's a little bit of an area that's inside, but I think it's going to turn out really nice. So obviously, if anybody would like to help with that, let me know. Sabrina sits on that committee as well. So we're going to begin going on that. So I just want to let you guys know about that. Mira Mesa High School enrollment is also down. So yeah, we're kind of dealing with the whole budget thing, and it's just, the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So that's just the way it goes. But the real reason that I actually wanted to talk to you guys is it's really exciting. I feel like it's right up some of you guys' alley, Pam especially. We recently remodeled our Mira Mesa High School library and innovative center, and her vision, Lynn Reeves, who is the library technician, she is just fantastic. She has a whole vision for our library, and she wants to create a space where the students can link to the past and then also achieve current educational goals while looking ahead to the future. So part of her plan is to create a mini Mira Mesa museum where the students can learn about Mira Mesa's history. She wants to include in the space the collection, of course, of our yearbooks, but a history of the community, maybe some artifacts, maybe some exhibits, as well as books about San Diego history. Of course, I've told her all about you, Pam, in your book. She has it. She actually has it in the library. But she wants to create a committee of 6 to 8 people, members of the community, staff, even students that might be willing to work with like historians, maybe somebody that has a little bit of museum expertise in them, and be able to help start to create this. So I told her I would bring it to you guys because I feel like you would be the perfect audience for this. And I told her that I definitely want to sit on that committee. And so if anybody else would like to contact me, and I can hook you right up with her, so we could start on that. So I think it's going to be an ongoing process. Also, she would love to come and speak about the whole vision of the library, because there is a lot going on actually with all of the high school libraries right now. They're all going into this new visionary thing. So, and our library media center is beautiful, by the way. So anyways, any questions about that?
Send Pam and me both more information about it, and we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. That would be wonderful. And I will put my email, of course, in the chat. So if anybody wants to contact me, or if they're interested in just like hearing more about it, like you said, Jeff and Pam. So thank you. That was it. And there's no new news on the Banner District, just so you can save time later on in the agenda. I mean, I have a couple of people have contacted me. I've gotten right back to them about doing some displays. No Del Mar Fair banners this year. They are putting it on hold once again, but they've contacted me already about next year. I said, of course, we're in, but they're not going to do it this year. So.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, Scripps Mesa Fireworks. Michael Spencer is not here. Pam is going to give his report.
Yes, I was in contact with Michael and he apologizes he can't be here tonight, but he does have a report. There is a virtual meeting planned for this Thursday between Pyro Spectaculars, Scripps Mesa Fireworks, San Diego Unified School District, San Diego Fire Department, and hopefully Barry from Mira Mesa Town Council. And we, that's Michael saying Scripps Mesa Fireworks, hope to have a plan for 2022 as a result of this meeting. If we do, we will announce immediately and will absolutely need donations from the community to make it happen. Pay attention to social media and the Scripps Mesa Fireworks website.
Excellent. Thanks, Pam.
You're welcome.
Moving on to elected officials, I'm going to disrupt the order slightly. I want to start with the office of Congressman Scott Peters. Anthony Nguyen, because you have news.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. Just some quick updates before the news. So for COVID test kits, hopefully you all heard about them, that you can order them free. I know we got calls about people having issues with the hotline. So if you come across anything like that, feel free to reach out to me or to our office and we can help figure out what's going on. The other thing is our office is participating in writing Valentine's cards to veterans. So if you have a group of friends that you want to gather together and make Valentine's card, the congressman will personally be delivering them on Monday the 14th to a veteran transition housing in downtown. You can mail it to our office or you can drop by our office Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 p.m. The last day that we'll accept anything would be close of business on Friday, February the 11th. And if you want me to swing by and meet you somewhere in Mira Mesa, I'm happy to do that on my way to work. I'm from North County in Escondido, so I'm happy to swing by Mira Mesa before going to our office, which is located near the UTC Mall. So I'll be sure to include the address in the chat room and more information about that as well. And yeah, so the last thing is bittersweet news that after 9 years working for Congressman Scott Peters, my last day with him will be Friday the 25th. I won't be going too far. I will be here in San Diego still and will be working for Rady's Children's Hospital, focusing on their alliance in their Institute for Genomic Medicine. So basically working with stakeholders, clinicians, and hospitals on the technology that they have there, helping pediatric patients. It's been a pleasure getting to know all of you throughout my last decade. You know, I started with the congressman's office when he first got elected. So back in January 2013 for me, and then went to DC and worked for him a little bit before coming back. So Mira Mesa is a great community. I definitely learned a lot and just want to thank you all for making me feel that I was part of this community too. And just know that my wife and I love shopping and eating around Mira Mesa. So hopefully we'll run into you all as well. But Barry, I'll keep you posted in terms of our contact from our office, and just thank you all for everything. And let me know if you have any questions, but I'll put my information in the chat. So thank you all.
Well, congratulations, Anthony. Our loss is Rady's gain, and we do hope to see you around the community.
Definitely. Thanks, Barry.
All right. All right, we'll go back to order. San Diego Unified School District, Sabrina Bazo.
Good evening, everyone. And yeah, I'd like to echo that. We're going to miss you, Anthony. It's been wonderful working with you, and wish you all the best. And I know you're going to do a fantastic job. So I will start out by also mentioning, as Jennifer and Wes also from the community college had mentioned about declining enrollment. It's not only happening here in Mira Mesa, or here in San Diego, but actually across California. So it's really an issue pretty much statewide that we are dealing with right now. So I don't really have it. I don't have any solutions to that at the moment. But just wanted to let you know it's not just here. That's kind of everywhere in California. Well, everywhere that I guess that's desirable to live, I should say, in California. I wanted to share with regard to COVID, the last month at the schools has definitely not, I know I've said in the past, we've been struggling, but man, this last month, I know Jennifer can attest, staff has just pulled together like no other. They basically declared a crisis state and all regular business was canceled, no professional development, nothing extra. Everything was focused on the classrooms and making sure we had coverage. And I've been out at Mira Mesa the high school several times. I was at Challenger, I've been at Wagenheim, been at Sandburg, Page, and I'm planning to get to Hickman. I was at, and I'm going to get over to Erickson as well. Which one am I missing? Missing one. Mason and Walker. But I've been trying to stay on top of it, and our staff is just amazing. Like, they've just come together. Jeff Sabins was telling me at the high school, I think it was the head of counseling was out for COVID, but she wasn't symptomatic, but she tested positive, and she was working from home. And it just goes to show you, I mean, it could have just been like, oh, I'm just going to take 10 days off, but no, staff are at home trying to help, because they know the people that are on the ground at school that are doing the work, that are overstressed and strained, and instead of just walking away, which they could have, people are just pitching in. And I'm sure Jennifer, like I said, can attest to that. We just have a fantastic team here in Mira Mesa, and I'm just very proud to represent them. But just know that it's been very stressful. I mean, Lamont Jackson's been substituting in the classrooms. They've had district staff out, they've had principals in the classrooms, area superintendents. And fortunately, because of that, we're very proud to say we haven't had to close down any schools. That was one of our main goals. We have had outbreaks, but no schools have been closed down, which we're very thankful. And especially here in Mira Mesa, like I said, I mean, it's been worse in other parts of the district as far as coverage. We were down to about 80% attendance, I think, for students. And usually we're at, on normal times, it's around 95. I just checked this morning because I get the numbers every couple days. And I think we're back up to about 90% attendance. And I think our staff is starting to be able to come back. So the surge has now lessened. Things are starting to climb back, but again, it's definitely, I mean, I know principals that have said, that have been here for 20, 30 years, and are saying this is the hardest year they've ever experienced. So, just give them some grace as you're dealing with people in the schools. So also switching to the something a little more positive, I guess, the TET Festival. I was out at the opening ceremonies on Saturday, and it was the mayor and city council and it was fantastic. I don't know if any of you got to see the opening ceremony, but it was really neat. They did like a formal ceremony with the flowers, and it was just kind of very meaningful to the Vietnamese culture. And so it was really cool to be part of that. We also got to give away money to the little kids in the envelopes. So really, really enjoyed that. And it just goes to show the, rich cultural heritage we have here in Mira Mesa. So I did make sure to make a little plug. Of course, I was bragging about Mira Mesa, but I also made a little plug for the 4th of July and the street fair, and for Mira Mesa Town Council, just reminding people of how fantastic this group is and how much you guys do. And also I attended that same day the Honors Middle School concert, which we had live. They're starting to have live concerts, but it was outside at Point Loma Nazarene. It was fantastic. And I'm very proud to report that Challenger and Wagenheim, because it was all middle school band and orchestra students, had really good representation. So I was really proud to see that. Finally, I wanted to mention, I know I've brought this up a few times, the superintendent search. So we really are getting towards the end. We were supposed to have a community engagement forum in January, but as I mentioned, pretty much everything got canceled in January that wasn't essential work to the district. We have the two candidates, Dr. Lamont Jackson and Dr. Susan Enfield, who's from the Seattle area. And the forum is going to take place on Saturday, February 26th, and community members are welcome to attend. You do have to RSVP, and I can put the link in the chat, or there will be an option for online if people aren't comfortable or just don't want to drive. It's going to be at Wilson Middle School. And because it's on a Saturday, it will allow, we think, a lot more people to actually attend, in addition to school staff if they would like. So those are some of my highlights, and I will stop there. Is there any questions? I'm waiting for Joe to say we just need to hire Lamont.
Yes,
Get it
listen,
done.
we don't want to go outside and get somebody into this boondoggle that's going on with all this COVID stuff. Lamont, he's been here for years. He knows the system. He loves Mira Mesa. We got to get him in there.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina. All right. Next up, if you're here, Denise from the Office of Councilmember Chris Kate. I don't think she was able to make it tonight.
I was here earlier, but I think she's gone.
Yeah, I think she's out. All right, Assemblymember Brian Mainshine, Rob Knudsen.
Well, good evening, everyone. I was in a good mood, and then I got sad because they're talking about turning my library into a museum, and I'm scared I'm going to find pictures of me and sweaters and things of me in there, and like I don't know that I'm ready to go to be mothballed just yet, and I think Anthony took a look at, like, if I stay in this public service too much longer, I'm going to look like Rob. So kudos to Anthony for transitioning out. So much definitely going to miss our working relationship. Tremendous asset to our office, and he will deeply be missed. Just two quick updates. We, as many of you know, last year we had a situation that took place up in Rancho Bernardo regarding the location of an SVP. If anyone doesn't know what that acronym stands for, it's sexually violent predator. And what we have introduced is a bill, AB 1641, which basically what we're doing is, once we kind of dug into the whole process of, once they are exiting a state hospital facility, the process of kind of placing them. Typically what happens with these SVPs, the county that they committed the crime, depending on certain circumstances, typically that's the county they go back to. However, there's a number of logistical steps and things that communities, elects, leaders don't have a role in or say until a location is like a housing location has been identified, which is kind of like, instead of, like, in a baseball term, you're skipping first and second, you're going straight to third. Now the community's getting involved, and usually by then it's like, wait a minute, why are we not in kind of this process during these various junction points? And so, for instance, we found out that these people that when they're released, they don't have GPS ankle bracelets attached to them for 24-hour monitoring. They have various check-in times, but essentially are kind of left on their own. And so there was just a number of things that we were confused and obviously concerned about, because we want to get the community, we want to get our law enforcement, we want to get all the parties who are going to be essential in helping identify a suitable location and get these folks in areas that in places that are that are mutually beneficial for everyone, and not feel like, hey, we're just going to place these people randomly, and a lot of the decision-making process right now is placed solely on a judge, and we would like to be able to kind of open that door a little bit and allow communities to have a little more input early on versus in the 11th hour. So keep your eye out. It's AB 1641. Obviously, what took place in Rancho Bernardo, we don't want to have happen in any of the assembly members' districts and communities. And let's just face it, we just want communities to be able to have a little bit more input early on as the process takes place, so we don't have something like this happen again. I have another piece of legislation It's made the Assembly member a little famous. He's now in Rolling Stone magazine. But if many of you have kind of read recently, been a lot of news on AB 1663, and it has to do with the Probate Conservatorship Reform and Supported Decision-Making Act. And we all know, I think many of us know who Britney Spears is, and kind of the legal battles that her and her family have been kind of going through. And because she was placed in a conservatorship, it's almost like your voice is not heard. You're not allowed to attend certain meetings or hearings, and to possibly consider alternatives to a probate conservatorship. And so we're working on AB 1663 again to kind of address and again create some access points to allow folks who are placed in these conservatorships a voice, and allow them to be heard along the way during some of these hearings that take place. A lot of times, once folks are placed into these conservatorships, they're not allowed in the courtroom. They're not allowed to raise their hand. They're not allowed to have a voice, and it's really a shame of kind of some of the things that have taken place. Some folks call it a power grab, and then the person is just not allowed to raise a hand and just identify concerns and questions that may be taking place, because oftentimes they're just not allowed. So that's AB 1663, and that's really all I have tonight. Again, Rob Knudsen with Assembly Member Brian Mainshine's office. Happy to answer any questions. Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right, we're gonna jump over to County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer's office, Amanda Berry.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. And congratulations, Anthony, on good to see where you're going. For those of you I don't know, my name is Amanda Berry, she, her, and I am a policy advisor for Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer in District 3. And today's update is really about our food systems, which is something that I've gotten to work on and I'm pretty excited about. We all love our local shops, restaurants, and breweries that we have. And the supervisor believes that when we support local food providers and farmers, our climate will actually improve and our families will have access to healthier food. But one of the things is the county of San Diego is one of the largest food buyers, but we haven't been doing enough to buy local. So we're taking action and putting our money where our mouth is. The last board meeting, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to move forward with a landmark proposal that is going to invest in local food sources and support San Diego's food producers, workers, and businesses. The county government is one of the largest food buyers in the region. It spends about $20 million to provide 10 million meals each year. And that includes meals for seniors, foster youth, public hospitals, and so many more. We know that if we purchase nutritious, sustainable, locally produced food, we can help shrink the harmful carbon emissions, improve nutrition, and decrease our healthcare costs for the populations that we're serving. So with the new policy that was championed by Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer, San Diegans win. We can fight poor nutrition and climate change all in the same package, which is really exciting to move our county forward. So I'll put some information in the chat and happy to answer any questions about this or other county items. Sabrina?
Oh, I just have a question. When you say we're going to be supporting local food sources, would that also include things like farmers market? Because we have a farmers market here in Mira Mesa, and we've kind of gone up and down in terms of, how many people we've been able to get to that, because also you're competing with, the Vons across the street and Sprouts and all the other groups. So is that helping at all with like the different farmers markets? Because the money from that program actually goes back to our high school.
For this policy, it's really good question and awesome that it goes back to the high school. I think for this policy, it's looking at the food buy that the county does. So it would be working with probably some of the vendors at your farmers market to work directly with them to get their food as the actual food that we provide in our home delivered meals for seniors, in our jails, and our food for foster youth, in the food that we buy, that we're not buying it from Peru, that we're buying it from local vendors, like the ones that are at the farmers market locally. In the same board item, there were a substantial amount of money for community food production. So that includes like fisheries and neighborhood gardens and things like that too. So that's also included in the action. Anything else?
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we've already heard from Anthony. And you notice I skipped Michaela from the mayor's office. She has sent us her report, and I will read this very quickly. Few things: Carroll Canyon Road feasibility study. The Engineering and Capital Projects Department is estimating to complete the feasibility study by March. For Wangenheim and Sauk, Wangenheim joint use construction has officially started as of January 31st. The Sauk joint use bids opened December 8th. Purchasing and contracting is initiating the award of the contract. Parks and Recreation, we currently have around 100 full-time permanent vacancies in the general fund for Parks and Recreation positions. Of those, we have 11 park rangers currently in the interview process with backgrounds pending. They should be able to make offers later this month. There are 48 grounds maintenance workers currently in the interview process. 3 assistant recreation center directors very recently resigned from position and may be filled from previous recruitment process. The remaining full-time vacancies include a variety of positions: custodians, utility workers, laborers, heavy truck drivers, mower operators, aquatic technicians, and several administrative support positions. Each of these are also in the process of being filled, with some currently out for recruitment and application. This includes a few supervisory positions that became vacant since our recruitment efforts last fall, such as recent retirement for a district manager and a recent promotion of a grounds maintenance manager. On the hourly side, we continue to have open continuous recruitment for the recreation aide, recreation leader, and swimming pool guards. We're seeing more submit applications, so we're optimistic that more people will join the list and allow us to continue interviews and recruitment of these positions. It's clear that our efforts to increase outreach efforts, specifically related to the virtual job fairs and sharing of recruitment announcements with nonprofit partners, has been effective. Streetlight repair update. In partnership with the Performance and Analytics Department, the Transportation Department has created a data-driven approach to addressing the streetlight repair backlog. The streetlight program has been retooled to focus on identifying and making repairs to significant blocks of streetlights quickly by using, for example, some of the following criteria: high crime areas, neighborhood blocks with multiple streetlight outages, high crash injury areas, historically underserved communities, service levels by community planning area, and age of service notification. Using data collected via the Get It Done app and from the Performance and Analytics Department to validate the Transportation Department's initial findings, and analyzing street repair locations with the Transportation Department's electrical section, a work plan has been created that is organized by council district and by priority. The city is working on addressing the backlog with existing city forces by shifting their service delivery focus directly to this issue. Should the city decide to contract supplemental services to assist with the backlog, This is purchasing and contracting department. We require a competitive bid process. And that is everything. And Jeff, you have this. We can put this up on the website. All right, open forum. I have not gotten anything in the chat. We had one person, but they had to leave the meeting. So we're going to go ahead and move right into the MMTC committee reports. Treasurer's report, Jonathan.
Yes, not too much to report. We have at the end of January, $68,334, and we've only spent about $304 this year so far. So, and maybe next month, I think we'll do the budget, the
Right.
proposal for that. And
We
that's
do-
it.
Thank you. We do have a draft budget, folks. We're going to go ahead and put it on the website so that we can start the next meeting by just taking a vote to confirm that.
Right.
All right, Jennifer, you said you do not have a banner district report. Yvonne is not here for membership, so that brings us to the end of our agenda. And I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the
that
motion.
There you go. I see.
I'll
you
second.
raising your hand. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you to everyone who is here, and we'll see you again in March, maybe in person. We'll keep you updated. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.